course, remind the Canadian public that this was the station you held prior to being in this position. No rules stopping a federal government employee in having contracts with the government. Now, as the Treasury Board president, can you say that this is the policy of the federal government? Is that the policy of the federal government?
Actually, that is absolutely false. The Section 7.1 of the Directive on Conflict of Interest
Why is it occurring?
says that there are consequences for non-compliance. Anyone employed in the federal government that hasn't complied with the requirements of the Directive on Conflict of Interest can be terminated. So there's a requirement to disclose conflicts, and if they are not disclosed or if the disclosure is inadequate, they can be fired.
Well, as key minister for this portfolio, for overseeing this, have you asked your officials how many employees would possibly be in this position?
Of course, I'm concerned with all federal public servants. We have about 300,000 such public servants, and many of them are unionized. And I work closely with all deputy ministers across departments through my officials to ensure that there's compliance with the rules. That is the role that Treasury Board will continue to play. And where there's not, there should be consequences. And that's what we are doing by updating the Manager's Guide on Professional Services.
I'll close with Dalian. Dalian was involved in procurement, the Treasury Board, and Department of Defense. All three positions which you have held. Were you familiar with Dalian? Were you aware that they were completing this type of contracting, this type of work, double dipping, as being responsible for those three portfolios?
I'm afraid I have to cut you off there. We're at our time, but perhaps you can answer on the next round.
Thank you very much. Minister, I'm going to go back to this, what is essentially a second announcement today, since the first announcement of the managerial guidelines seemed to have proven ineffective in the first 6 months. And frankly, I don't think more guidelines are what are required. Frankly, it is the ensuring that public servants are complying with them. I think that's far more important than creating new levels of bureaucracy, new levels of red tape. Now, to go back to the $5 million first wave that was announced today in the Globe and Mail by Bill Curry, the government has identified 635 IT middlemen that do no work. In fact, as we know, the PBO